Hey everybody, TJ here. I'm pretty amped up right now. I just finished recording the ADR for the most recent episode of Smash Supremacy, which will come out in a few days, so I'm really excited. But this show is me time, so let's wind down a little bit, talk about some Nintendo-related subjects. Last time, I had a very special guest host on the show, my favorite little person in the whole wide world, my daughter, and we discussed the Jakks Pacific figures that she now collects, or well, rather I collect on her behalf, and we play with them together, and we compared them to some of the Nintendo figures that I had acquired throughout my years of Nintendo figure collecting. But I did not get to really discuss a lot of the things about those Jakks Pacific figures that are on my mind. And so I thought we'd carry that over into this episode and talk specifically about the Jakks Pacific World of Nintendo figures. I'm going to forewarn you, most of the time, Nintendo is just, it's a great source of happiness for me. Every time I'm playing a Nintendo game or related, or working on a Nintendo related show, or collecting the figures, playing with the Amiibo, it makes me happy. And so today, I'm going to be talking about some of the other things that frustrate me a little bit. I am going to be airing some grievances, so you may get a little bit more of the dark side. That said, let's cross our T's and dot our J's.
The views and opinions expressed here are ours alone and do not necessarily reflect those of this channel or its affiliates.
And we reserve the right to alter them at any time if it's convenient or because we feel like it. So, take this.
Alright, now that we got that out of the way, if you guys are like me, you probably have a few Amiibo, or maybe more than a few. And you might also have a few World of Nintendo figures. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They have these extremely tiny little micro figures. They've got a 4-inch line of figures that actually range from like maybe 3 inches to 6 inches. And then for a brief period of time, they had a 6-inch line, which I think there's only 4 figures that ever actually got made to that set. And then they also have plush figures, and there's even a few huge figures, like a big Fire Mario, a big Link, and a big Super Mario. So we have a few of a lot of those different things. And I imagine you might as well. You may have heard from one of the previous episodes that for my job, I'm a sword fighter. And while it is the most amazing job that I can think of, and I came into this world knowing that's what I wanted to do, and I count myself extremely blessed that I get to have that experience, for all of the fun things that it affords me, one thing that it cannot offer is job security. So it's one of those jobs where you just never really know where the next one's going to be. I will say I have been very, very blessed, and I've done all right for myself. My wife also works as well, so we can kind of like help each other out a little bit, but it's pretty much a feast or famine lifestyle. All this to say, I don't want to leave you with the impression that I'm operating with unlimited resources. A lot of the discretionary spending that my wife and I earn does go to things like Amiibo. I invest a lot in the shows that I like to do, Smash Supremacy, Maybe Me, Custom Conquest. For Custom Conquest, I've put a lot of money into Amiibo and acquiring them for the show, because that's something that I really am passionate about, and I enjoy doing it. My wife and I do not have a lot of hot dates out on the town. We have 2 very young children, 3 and under, and there's also a bun in the oven. So that makes it very difficult to leave the house. I've seen 2 movies in the past, since my daughter was born, so 3 years plus. So a lot of the time that we spend our money, it's at home, doing things like on Nintendo products and on Nintendo toys. Now that you know a little bit about my background, I'm not just like willy-nilly throwing money out the window. And that's going to come in a little bit to this Jakks Pacific discussion. But first, let me give you a background to why I started collecting the Jakks Pacific figures in the first place. When I first started doing Smash Supremacy, I was buying up all of the Smash series Amiibo to put into the show. And my daughter was very interested in everything that I was doing. And the interest that she was taking in me was a ton of fun. And we started to very quickly bond over these Nintendo games and these Nintendo characters. And she very much wanted to handle and play with the Amiibo. At the time, she was a 2-year-old. So I didn't really want to take this, what I would consider to be an expensive toy. $13.99 if you got it from Toys R Us, $12.99 most other places, and there were very few sales or deals when they first came out. So I cannot afford to be rebuying figures because they break, because I trusted it in the hands of a 2-year-old. It says 6+ on the box for a reason. When these World of Nintendo figures came out, it seemed like a really good opportunity for me to give her toys that are a little bit more durable, and if she does break them, I can use my customizing skill set to repair them a little bit. So that was what got me into that. I have not bought her any of the 2.5 inch, but I've bought a lot of the 2.5 inch, and reason being, they're the same scale as the Amiibo. So it really is a super cool resource for me to expand my arsenal of figures to choose from when it comes to trying to create some cool customs. And I've really appreciated having the World of Nintendo 2.5 inch line for that very reason. And they're continuing to make 2.5 inch figures that are really great, and they're inspiring some really awesome custom ideas for me, and we're going to talk more about that next time about custom stuff. But that's what the 2.5 inch appeal is. With the 4-inch line and the 6-inch line, which I believe were made to be compatible with each other, they just made the 6-inch for figures that are larger, like Donkey Kong, Bowser, Ganondorf, and then the Metroid from Metroid. I think that it's great that they're out there. I think that the license that they managed to secure from Nintendo was amazing. They have these, not just certain figures, but across the board. What limitations this license has, we don't know at this point, but they've touched so many different franchises already, from Metroid to the Super Mario series, obviously, and Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong. I'm completely in love with their 8-bit series. Those ones are so cool looking to me. I love those. I have more than a few complaints about the World of Nintendo figures, but let me start with my number one grievance. If it were not for the internet, I would not even know that they exist. I don't know what kind of distribution strategy they have for these toys, but I've said it before, I live in California, Los Angeles, California. There are 15 Toys R Us's within driving distance of me, twice that many Targets. There are copious amounts of Walmarts and other retailers that carry these toys. I have Walgreens on every single corner. And if it were not for the internet, I would not even know these figures exist. Why are they never in the store? Why are they never in there? Is it that they go to the store and then people instantaneously buy them up? Possibly, but I tend to doubt it. I don't know. I don't know anything about their supply chain. I don't know anything about their manufacturing details. I just know that there's a very obvious case of figures that I would buy if I could get it. If I walked into the store and the figure that I wanted was there, I would buy it. And to me, that kind of seems like leaving money on the table. You could argue that Nintendo did the same thing with Amiibo in the very beginning, and that certainly did frustrate me. I bit off way more than I could chew with that. I thought, hey, it would be fun to do this little show based on Amiibo fighting each other in Smash Brothers, but it turned into a whole job trying to track these things down. That alone ate up so much of my time and my resources just even trying to find them that it was the source of a lot of frustration for me. But I cut Nintendo a little bit more slack with Amiibo, and here's why. It was an unproven entity. They have this toy-to-life figure that is interfacing with their games in a way that they have never done before, and even though Toys to Life had existed in other forms like Disney Infinity and Skylander, Nintendo was doing something different. They did not have a toy that was game dependent or game specific. They created something that was much more far reaching, and the ramifications are much more long term. As we already know, Disney Infinity is it's dried up. So those figures that you have, of course, they're still going to work with the games that you bought them to play with. But other than that, you have some impressive looking display pieces that as of the next console generation, who knows if they'll even work. Where there's every expectation that Amiibo are here to stay for a little while, at least the NX. So Nintendo, they needed to create a product that people were interested in, but you don't want to create so many of this product that if it fails horribly, that you get stuck with warehouses full of useless toys that nobody wants. So I cut them a little bit of slack that it took some time for them to catch up to the demand, because you don't know what the demand is. Now, Jakks Pacific, they are not new to this game, and they're not making something new. They're making action figures, which is their thing. You can go to their website and see they make all kinds of action figures, and they've been doing this for a long time. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say they do not have a property that is more appealing or enticing than Nintendo. Certainly not to me. So I know there are some wrestling figure collectors out there and some other things, but their Nintendo license is gold. I don't know what it takes to acquire that. I don't know if there are some imposed roadblocks that prevent them from being able to put these into the stores that allow me to walk in there and put it into my hand. I don't know. But there's an obvious problem there. If I could walk into 15 different Toys R Us's and not even be aware of the existence of this product, how is that not a problem? My second grievance number 2 with these World of Nintendo figures is some of the unbelievably obvious design flaws. It just makes me shocked to think that you would make a toy like this and not, at some point during your testing process, put it in the hands of a child and see what a child would do with it. I would be happy to volunteer the services of my children for this, because they are very good at quickly figuring out what flaws there are in a product's design, as I'm sure a lot of kids are, because you want to experiment with what the toy is capable of doing. If it looks like something moves or has some kind of moving part, a kid wants to move it, and that's the natural thing to do. I think adults do too, but we can tell if we're going to break it. A kid wants to test its durability. So I'm going to apologize. This isn't the figure I'm going to reference, but the Skyward Sword figure that was in the first wave, I talked about this a little bit last time. His shield does not fit over his hand. This piece that clicks onto his forearm is too small for his hand to go through. What? Why would you give a character a shield accessory that he's obviously meant to hold when his hand obviously doesn't fit through it? Am I crazy? Or is that just such an obvious oversight that it is fully deserving of condemnation? What? Who is not going to want to put the shield in Link's hand? I don't know what solution you guys found for it. I broke it. I have all these customizing resources all over the place, so I very carefully snipped one piece and I fit it over Link's arm and I glued it in place. So now the shield is permanently attached, or well, I guess I could disassemble it and make it a standalone shield, or maybe change whatever's connecting it all together to... Why am I doing this? Why do I have to customize a toy to make it do something that it should obviously do anyway? Is it me? Is it just me? Or, I don't know. The accessory not being compatible with the figure is bad, but it's not as bad as the figure not being compatible with itself. So, okay. This is the Peach figure. You may notice that it is rose gold. That is because I customized it after my daughter broke its head off, but it's not because she was being a wild child. It's not because she was not respecting her property. It is because this toy was designed in a way that wants it to be broken. It was designed in such a way that demands it breaking. Look, so we got this head on here. The head is on, it has the ability to swivel. Sort of. It turns, but the hair on this figure, it cannot fit over the shoulder. So if you try to turn this head, and I'm not just talking like, it cannot even achieve 45 degrees. If you turn this toy 45 degrees, you broke it. Okay, if you want to make this toy have hair that's semi-rigid, it's kind of a more rubbery consistency than the rest of the figure, where this is quite rigid. But if you insist on making its hair like that, then don't you think it should not have a movable neck joint? Or if you do want it to have a movable neck joint, don't you think you need to put it on a ball that would allow the head to move forward enough to be able to turn it so that it can at least fit around the toy's own shoulders? What? So, within the first week of having this toy, the head broke off. And I don't blame my kid. I have a hard time imagining that if you take this toy and you test it in a room with a bunch of 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, that all of the heads aren't broken off within a few minutes. And it's not because kids are being wild or being destructive. It's because the toy has an obvious design flaw. So these are just the two biggest ones that I noticed because I encountered them in my own play. Maybe you did too, and maybe you had to come up with some other solution. I imagine if you are an adult collector, you don't really play with them, and you would identify very quickly a flaw in a character's articulation design, and you would not push that to strain the limits of what it's capable of achieving. But if you're a kid and you're handed a toy, you want to play with the toy. You want to do with the toy what the toy is designed to do. One of the initial appeals for the 2.5-inch line was the price point. They sold, I think I picked up my first couple from Target for $3 and some change, which I felt was a good price for those figures. They didn't have any of the Amiibo functionality. The paint jobs were not quite as tight as the Amiibo, but they were good. They were decent figures with extremely limited articulation. You could move the head a little bit, you can move the arms a little bit. Most of their legs are completely locked in position. And that's fine. They looked good enough, and the price was right. Now, you go into Toys R Us, my local Toys R Us. I don't know what it's like by you guys, but $6.99 for these 2.5-inch figures. The figures, I have a really hard time with that. You expect when you shop at Toys R Us that you're gonna pay the Jeffrey tax, but this is not the Jeffrey tax. This is something a little bit more insidious. The first sign of dark times ahead was the Spencer's exclusive Dark Link. Dark Link is a figure I would purchase hands down without even batting an eye. I wanted a Dark Link figure so bad I customized 4 of them, four Amiibo of them. And I love that figure. I love that character. Obviously, the dark motif appeals to me somewhat, a little bit. You might have noticed. So I would love to have that figure. I saw that price tag of $20, and then on top of it, $10 shipping. So I'm gonna pay $30 for one World of Nintendo figure? I need to be able to get 3 World of Nintendo figures for $30. Dark Link, forget it. Let's get one thing straight. It's not the world's greatest sculpt. It is certainly a very, very lazy paint job. There's nothing impressive about this. You have a black figure with red eyes. I'm not criticizing it from the perspective of it not looking how it's supposed to. The Dark Link, that's what he looks like. He has black and red eyes, but you can't tell me that they're more expensive to produce than the standard Link that has at least 3 times as many different colors on it. I get that Spencer's probably dropped a fair amount of money to be able to have this exclusive figure and they want to be able to make that back. But what little kid is walking into Spencer's at all? What parent is bringing their kid into Spencer's? So they're clearly appealing to an older clientele. They're clearly appealing to, well, me. I'm the guy who grew up playing Zelda. I'm the guy who who experienced all of these games when they originally released, and I love them, and I love these figures, and I love these characters, and I would buy it if it did not cost me $30. Even if I could, I'm going to be honest, even if I could walk into a store and there were 10 of them on the shelf and I could pull one off and buy it for $20, I would not. It's not good enough. Not good enough to me. Now, that's bad enough when you have a figure that is exclusive to a particular retailer and you're subject to whatever they want to charge for it. And if they want to gouge you for it, you can either not get it or you can pay their exorbitant price. So I made my decision. A lot of you guys did too. I don't judge anyone who bought this $20 figure. I just made the decision that it does not have that value to me. That's bad enough. But then when you have a big toy stores, not just big, but the biggest, maybe even arguably the king of all toy stores, Toys R Us, there's been a lot of changes in the prices of these World of Nintendo figures lately, both in the 2.5 inch and the 4-inch line. And we're not talking about like some small margin. We're talking about double, and in some cases almost triple the price of the MSRP. I don't know what's going on with it, other than Jakks Pacific lays out a suggested retail price for these figures and stores sell them at that price, and if they're flying off the shelves at that price, stores get the impression that they can sell them for a lot more. And if these figures are going for 2 or 3 times that much online, then maybe the stores are right and they can charge triple MSRP. But to me, that is highway robbery. That is straight up exploitation. One of the areas where I have very few natural gifts is math, but even I can see that something doesn't add up. So right now, I'm in a place, price-wise, where I feel obligated to stop collecting these figures. It's reached a point of, instead of being something fun that I can share with my daughter, it's reaching a point of fiscal irresponsibility for me to continue to support this collection. And I'm sorry to say that, because I like these figures and I really enjoy buying them and playing with them with my kids, who will also enjoy them. But they are now being priced higher than their value to me. Maybe you're thinking that this is a $14 figure. I cannot justify that. This is not. I paid $10 for this figure, and to be completely honest with you, I feel like I got ripped off. I bought it because it's so hard to find them that I accepted that I was going to pay a little bit more than I wanted to, a little bit more than I felt that the figure was worth, to save myself the trouble of continuing to try to track them down. So with this most recent wave of the 4-inch line, the Zelda, Slippy Toad, Mushroom Toad, there's 2 toads in there, I just realized. That's funny. Catsuit Mario and Skull Kid. My daughter's been wanting a Zelda for a long time. Catsuit Luigi is one of her favorite ones, and so I'm sure that she'd really have a lot of fun with Catsuit Mario. So this is a great wave in terms of the figures that are available, but goodness gracious, $14 each? That's nuts. And that's, Toys R Us doesn't even sell them for the highest price. They go from CVS, which is, I don't know, it's kind of like a Walgreens. I don't know if they're national, if it's a national chain or if it's just out here in California. But they sell for $15 each. That's wild. So here's where I'm at with these World of Nintendo figures. I have a lot of customs in mind that I want to be able to make, and I think that the 2.5 inch are a tremendous resource to be able to pull from to make these figures. But now they're approaching too close to the price of an actual Amiibo, and with certain Amiibo being discounted well below their original price, like the Animal Crossing Amiibo. Those Animal Crossing Amiibo up there that you see, I was never going to get those Animal Crossing Amiibo. 2 things happened. 1, New Leaf functionality, that enticed me. And 2, I paid like $4 each from Amazon at some point. They were worth it to me for $4. I wasn't going to be able to afford, I couldn't afford them at their original retail price, but I will pay that price. Fries out here, I actually got the KK Slider 3-pack with the 2 alpacas for $3. $3! That's not a joke. It was with the coupon code. I walked in there and I bought it for $3. That's like $1 an Amiibo. That's crazy. I couldn't turn that down. So I was very happy to do that. Now, when we've got real Amiibo that not only have stellar figures, totally amazing figures, some of the best figures I've ever seen, figures that I'm excited about. And they, not only that, but they do stuff. They do stuff in the game. I can use them. They have a heightened degree of interactivity. That makes them even that much more appealing. And so you have these World of Nintendo figures that are figures that you can play with, and they look good. Some look great. Some look pretty weak. But they are just a figure. And they're, in many cases, more expensive than Amiibo. I'm out. Now for the 4-inch, the ones that I don't use them for my work. They're purely to play with my kid with. We've got a lot now. We've collected them up to this wave. We got plenty. We're not hurting for toys. If they were to continue to make them, I would be interested in continuing to support them and make more, but I'm not going to pay $15 for those toys. I'm not. They're not worth it to me. They don't provide enough of an experience. Bottom line, it can't fit into the budget. And even if I could, even if money was not an object, and I could just disperse it, slap out those bills for some toys, I don't think I would in this case, because I cannot consider, no matter how I slice it, this as a $15 toy. So I can't say with any degree of certainty whether or not there will be toys down the line in this 4-inch series that I will want, that will have appeal to me. But what I can say is I think I might have just purchased my last wave. Unless there becomes a way of, I would go to Target and buy them if Target ever had them. I know a lot of people have success picking them up from Targets. I don't. I've never even seen a 4-inch figure at a Target. When I walk in, there's usually like one Diddy Kong sitting of the 2.5-inch sitting on the shelf. So I obviously can't do that. Target online never has them, and none of the suppliers online ever have them in stock. So I can't get them from the places that sell them for MSRP or for prices that are consistent with how I perceive the value of this figure to be. So maybe that just means I'm no longer their customer, because there's no way that I can afford to pay scalper prices on these things. There's a lot of those little Pikmin I don't have, because who's going to drop $30 for, well, I guess people are doing it, for a tiny little cheap toy with it's like a gumball machine toy. It's the kind of toy you stick a quarter in a gumball and it comes out. That's what those Pikmin are. That they can even sell them for $4 kind of surprises me. But that their aftermarket value is so high, it blows my mind. But it is what it is. I don't know if maybe the cost of production somehow went up, or if maybe whatever arrangement they have with Nintendo is somehow resulting in more money on their side, and they have to find some way to be able to balance out profits. I don't know. I honestly don't. But at some point, the value of the product to the consumer and the price of the product need to find some harmonious balance. A manufacturer can suggest any retail price that they want for a product. We live in a free market, and I totally believe that's how it should be. But one of the things that you would discover very quickly is, let's say you set a $100 price tag on this toy, you're not going to sell any of this toy. You're just not. The amount of people out there in the world who would spend $100 for this toy are probably very few and far between. So you've got to find the price that you can sell it for where the consumer is feeling like they're getting a value, or maybe not even a value, but where it's worth it, what they're willing to pay for it, and also what covers not only the expenses of production, but also turns a profit, because that's what they're in the business of, is to be able to sell toys for a profit. And it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the person who creates it, or the entity that creates it, and also the people who support it by purchasing it, by spending their money on it. I'm at a point now with Jakks specific and the World of Nintendo figures where, and I'm not putting the blame on them, because I don't actually know where this is happening. I don't know if if they are encouraging retailers to ask more money, or if retailers are taking it upon themselves individually. Although I would tend to think maybe it is more the retailers, because you still have places like Target where if you do live in an area where you happen to have a Target that supplies these toys, they still sell them at the original MSRP. And then you have places like CVS, who's always charged $15. Toys R Us now approaching that $15 mark. I don't really know what's going on, but it's a weird climate now. I'm going to enjoy this most recent wave with my daughter. I know that Zelda is a highly anticipated figure for her. And if things keep trending this way, then maybe it is time for TJ and the Sensula family to say goodbye to the world of Nintendo figures, which is a sad thing to me because I love what they're doing and I would love to be able to continue to support it, but they're pricing themselves out for this family and this family's budget. So what I want to know is, what's your experience like with these figures? What are your collecting habits? Do you collect all of them? Do you need to have each and every one of these figures? Do you collect the 2.5 inch? Do you collect the micros? Do you collect the 4-inch figures? Have you spent exorbitant amounts of money trying to pick up some of the rarer ones on eBay or Amazon from the marketplace vendors? Are you reaching a point with your collection where you're having to consider, either due to budgetary constraints or just because the figures are starting to lose value in comparison to what they're costing? Tell me about your individual experience with these toys. Is it just me? Maybe it is just me and the price is fair and it's just not meshing with my individual perception of what they should cost. So I want to know, and I want to know from my favorite player pals out there, and that's you guys. So enough of me complaining. I promise next time will be a much happier episode. We're going to talk a little bit about a show you may have heard of, Custom Conquest. So thank you so much for spending your time with me, and we'll see you again real soon, I hope. Thanks for playing.